2018, 5-year-old Larea Davis was rushed to a Las Vegas hospital after she was found unresponsive. When doctors initially examined her, they noticed the little girl had several bruises on her legs, her torso, and her abdomen.
Just when you thought it couldn't get any crazier, the police gently break the news to the woman that she's being arrested in connection with a mishap involving her kiddo. They're quick to mention they aren't the sleuths on the case, but merely there to slap on the cuffs based on some existing charges.
Kids are one's at the hospital, one's in the care of the state, right? So you're under arrest. I guess they got charges on you. We're not the investigator. We're the guys that they say go find her. We have charges. Okay. So we're being charged with child neglect that caused great bodily harm. Okay.
And now for a slightly less dramatic scene. An officer starts chit-chatting with the woman about her phone's dwindling battery life, even offering to shut it off to save some juice. He walks her through the steps to power down an iPhone, making sure it doesn't conk out during the whole ordeal.
You only have like 22% battery. You want me to like shut it off so it doesn't die? I don't have an iPhone. How do you turn it off?
You hold the side button there and the top one there. So
like that?
Yeah.
Amid the chaos, a ray of sunshine, the convo pivots to the woman's recent job orientation. Looks like she's been trying to turn things around by snagging a new gig. The officer gets nosy about when she starts and what her role will be, shedding some light on her efforts to spruce up her life just as the cuffs come on.
I was just coming back from orientation.
Hey, you got a job? Did you get a job?
Maya Cooper.
Is that golf? That's like a golf course, right? Nice. We're supposed to start there.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. When do you like start?
Orientation.
Oh, okay. You don't have a schedule yet?
In an unexpected twist of fate, the officers speculate about the woman possibly getting a bond, hinting that her criminal resume isn't exactly overflowing. They toss around some encouragement, advising her to keep her chin up despite the sticky situation.
No, like major criminal past or anything? You'll get a bond, you bond out, you get a court date. You're alright. No worries. Just keep your head up. Is the car locked and everything?
Here's a touching bit. A brief chat bubbles up about whether the woman will manage to post bail. The officer shows a dash of empathy, checking in on her emotional weather during the stormy arrest scene.
You gonna be able to get out?
Yeah, I'll be
All right.
2048 GMO. You gonna ask me, she all right? You good?
I think so. He's okay. Yeah.
All right.
Thanks, Jen.
2048 GMO, please.
Plot twist incoming. The officers talk about ringing up the woman's hubby to tell him she won't make it to scoop him up from work due to her newfound bracelet. Handcuffs, that is. It's a logistical headache that highlights how her day took a detour, affecting not just her, but her better half too.
So she's supposed to was supposed to pick up her husband from work at like 5. She's not gonna make it. So can we call him just so...
Brace yourself for a bit of housekeeping. They quickly gab about making sure all her ducks are in a row before moving forward. They double-check that her house and car are secured, underlining the broader impacts of her arrest on her digs and family stability.
You ready for it?
You already searched?
Kind of, sort of, but I mean, obviously, you know, do your thing.
These are going with her this time.
They're going.
Try to work.
I mean...
Anything on you that I need to know about? Like, I don't know you, no drugs,
No, sir.
nothing.
Focus on the minutiae. The officers delve into a chat about swapping handcuffs and managing the finer points of the arrest with the precision of a Swiss watch. This bit of procedural dance showcases the meticulous nature of law enforcement when it comes to such delicate matters.
Call out.
Guess that, dude.
Yeah, that was
We were out here for hours.
such a pain in the butt. That's why, ever since that one, I said, I'm never going to make contact with somebody like that.
Can you believe this tragedy unfolded? The tragic story begins with a new mother, 31-year-old Jerry McMean, who drowns after falling overboard during a 4th of July boating party on Lake Conroe, Texas. The incident involved her brother-in-law, Kyle Dean Mackiem, and his friend Shane Everett, who were both arrested and charged. Maritime attorney Michael Winkleman is introduced to analyze the case on the show Sidebar, hosted by Jesse Weber.
A new mom to a baby girl tragically drowned after she fell overboard during a 4th of July July boating party. Her brother-in-law and his friend were both arrested and charged. So how did this happen? Who's at fault? Could the charges be upgraded? Well, we're going to break down the case with maritime attorney Michael Winkelman.
This next part is quite perplexing. During the evening, confusion arises about who was driving the pontoon boat. Reports conflict whether it was Jerry's brother-in-law Kyle or their friend Shane. It's revealed that both Kyle and Shane were captaining two different boats, with Kyle's girlfriend Aubrey Curran also present. As darkness sets in, the boats collide, leading to Jerry's fatal overboard fall.
July 4th, 31-year-old Jerry McMeekin was out on a pontoon boat in Lake Conroe, which is north of Houston. She was with her husband Brandon. Now, there's a bit of mixed reporting who was actually driving this boat, whether it was Jerry's brother-in-law.
This is absolutely shocking. After Jerry falls into the water without a life jacket, Aubrey Curran immediately jumps in to assist her. However, both women quickly disappear from sight, prompting Kyle and Shane to dive in after them. The Montgomery County Marine Division and other first responders reached the scene minutes after receiving a distress call, highlighting the rapid response to the emergency.
And Jerry fell overboard. She wasn't wearing a life preserver. Kyle's girlfriend, again Aubrey Curran, immediately jumped in to help Jerry, but both women soon disappeared from sight. So Kyle and Shane, they dived in to help find them. Now, the Montgomery County Marine Division, Texas Parks and Wildlife, local fire departments, other first responders, they arrived within minutes of receiving.
You won't believe what comes next. The police find both Kyle and Shane intoxicated, leading to their arrest for boating under the influence. The search for Jerry intensifies with police using side-scan sonar technology in their efforts. Meanwhile, Aubrey is found safe on a dock after swimming roughly 3/4 of a mile.
On our arrival to the scene, we did find two boats that were traveling together. Subsequently, those two males were arrested for boating while intoxicated. We pulled everybody out of the water. Let's start.
Okay, go ahead.
Earlier this evening, about 9 p.m., we responded to...
It's hard to grasp the gravity of this moment. The body of Jerry McMean is eventually recovered around 11:30 p.m. by North Montgomery County Fire Department divers, nearly 2 hours after the initial fall. She is pronounced dead at the scene. The community reflects on the dangers of boating while intoxicated, especially during crowded holiday events.
So Aubrey had swum about 3/4 of a mile to get to safety, but unfortunately for Jerry McMeekin, he wasn't as lucky.
And then about 2 hours later, unfortunately, we did recover the female that fell overboard. Involved in that search was Precinct 1.
What unfolds here is a crucial point of reflection. The Montgomery County District Attorney Brett Leon speaks on the perils associated with drinking and boating, emphasizing the need for safety on busy lakes. Meanwhile, legal outcomes for the two arrested men remain uncertain, with ongoing discussions about potential additional charges linked to Jerry's death.
Subsequently, those two males were arrested for boating while intoxicated.
Game wardens with the Texas Parks and Wildlife arrested Shane Anaboli and Kyle McMeekin. They were held at the Montgomery County Jail until McMeekin was released on a $3,000 bond. Anaboli was freed on a $1,000 bond.
Maritime attorney Michael Winkelman discusses the commonality of boating accidents involving alcohol, especially during holidays like July 4th. He stresses the preventability of such tragedies and the role of proper safety measures and sober boating practices in avoiding these incidents.
The water on any kind of a major holiday, particularly July 4th, because there's just, when you mix in boating with alcohol, it's just, this is sadly what happened. I mean, it really sounds like this was a tragic accident, but there's no doubt in my mind that it was 100%.
The legal landscape is about to get even more complicated. Legal consequences for boating under the influence are compared to those of driving under the influence. The discussion includes potential charges and the nuances of maritime law, pointing out that such incidents often result in both criminal and civil repercussions, especially when negligence leads to fatalities.
It could very easily become a felony, though, if there's certain aggravating circumstances. I don't see any of them in play at this point, but this is clearly an accident. You had really either two families or friends on different vessels, a preventable accident.
The implications here are about to deepen. Speculations about why both men were charged despite possibly one being more at fault are considered. Differences in bond amounts hint at varying degrees of responsibility or levels of intoxication. The segment concludes with insights into the challenges of legal proceedings in such complex interpersonal scenarios.
We're honest and frank about the fact that they had been consuming alcohol, and that in and of itself was enough to have taken them into custody overnight. The fact that there was a fatality involved from the moment that the police came on scene, I think that gives it an extra reasons for the police having taken them into custody.
The next segment will reveal some surprising legal twists. Final thoughts on the case suggest a tragic accident involving close family or friends. The possibility of civil litigation is uncertain, with various factors like boat ownership and rental conditions potentially influencing legal actions. The community's mourning of Jerry's loss underscores the profound impact of the accident on her family and the broader community.
Appreciate you taking the time. Thank you so much for giving your expertise on it, and hopefully we don't see another case like this anytime soon.
For sure. Thank you, Jesse. Nice to see you.
Good seeing you.
Brace yourselves, folks. We're diving right into a mind-bending case where a Pennsylvania man is accused of a brutal crime against his mother-in-law. The desperate call to the police by his wife sets a grim scene for the horrifying discovery.
A man accused of torturing his mother-in-law and killing her. How his wife sounded the alarm to police, but there are still a lot of questions. A grandmother tortured to death as her daughter and grandchildren stood outside of their home.
Can you believe this? As officers roll up to the scene in Doylestown, Pennsylvania, they find the suspect, William Gautier, chillingly calm outside his home. Inside, the body of Lourdes Ramos Bias lies hidden under truly disturbing circumstances.
William Gautier standing outside of his house. His wife and children were standing behind him. Gautier's wife, according to police, mouthed the words, "Help me," and said her mother needed help. Police say Gautier became violent with the officers, spit on them, and broke a squad car window.
No words for this. During Gautier's detainment by the police, his wife covertly signals for help, mouthing "help me" to officers, hinting at the urgent need to enter the home.
She said she was told to go outside with the children and that her husband was in the home fixing things with Clorox. Dr. Chloe Carmichael is here with me. She's a clinical psychologist and also the author of a book, Nervous Energy.
It gets crazier. Inside the house, authorities uncover Bias's body shrouded under clothes, her eyes bound with duct tape, and injuries that speak volumes of the cruelty endured.
Dr. Carmichael, there are a lot of questions that I have about this case. The first being how the wife of William Gautier, her mother, is inside the house with her husband, who she described as going ballistic, and then she goes outside for several hours.
You won't see this coming. Dr. Chloe Carmichael offers insights into the psychological turmoil possibly endured by the wife, revealing the depth of trauma and the grip of fear that may have influenced her actions during these chilling events.
As things are unfolding in the home, can you explain to me your analysis of that? I know you haven't examined the wife, but you certainly know things about trauma and things like that.
Just when you thought it couldn't get any worse, the conversation shifts to detail the savage nature of the assault, emphasizing the suspect's apparent awareness and calculated intentions behind his gruesome actions.
The details of this case are absolutely horrifying.
I agree. And moreover, he then apparently was there, with Clorox trying to, quote, fix it, which, to me as a psychologist, again, really suggests that he had actually a quite strong awareness.
This part is wild. As the police make their presence known, the wife subtly communicates her terror, a blend of fear and quick thinking, signaling that all is not well inside the house.
Formed her mouth to say, "Help me, my mother's inside being murdered," when her husband was, nowhere near her. Again, I can understand a level of fear if your abuser is, a couple of feet away from you.
Wait till you hear the rest. Wrapping up today's episode, the anchor recaps the suspect's arrest, the charges laid against him including eliminate, and hints at the many unanswered questions that linger.
Absolutely disturbing, and we will continue to follow the case. Dr. Chloe Carmichael, thank you so much for coming on. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Can you believe this? Brandy Elliott, a 33-year-old mother from Tennessee, is arrested after the tragic drowning of her 7-year-old daughter, Piper. The incident, which occurred last week, has sent shockwaves through the community. The Hendersonville Police Department is now piecing together the details of this heartbreaking event.
Greater obligation you have in the world to protect than to protect your child.
33-year-old Brandy Elliott is behind bars in Tennessee in connection with the death of 7-year-old daughter Piper. The case unfolded last week when the Hendersonville Police Department received a report of a child.
This one's a real head-scratcher. The case is shockingly labeled as a deliberate act by Piper's mother, Brandy, leading to her arrest. Experts chime in on the nature of such crimes, highlighting that the individuals who commit these horrific acts often appear to be ordinary people struggling with serious underlying issues like poor coping skills or personality disorders.
They determined the 7-year-old's mother was allegedly responsible for the crime.
So a lot of people will label these individuals as monsters, but these are shockingly ordinary people who are doing horrific things.
You might need to sit down for this part. During her police interview, Brandy Elliott gives a glimpse into the events leading up to the crime. She talks about having a tough day and seeking some alone time, which escalated when her daughter Piper refused to stay at home and insisted on joining her outside. They ended up at a local greenway where things took a tragic turn.
But Brandy's police interview would reveal more into the shocking crime. During her interview with investigators, Brandy explained she wanted alone time after having a rough day. She reportedly told officers she left her apartment and went to the bottom of the stairwell. However, Piper wanted to join her.
This next bit is seriously hard to swallow. In a horrifying confession, Brandy Elliott tells police that she held her daughter underwater in a shallow creek area off the greenway, instructing her to stay quiet, comparing the act to holding a largemouth bass, until she noticed the tragic signs of Piper struggling.
And that's where she committed the horrific crime. Brandy told police she took her daughter to a shallow area off the greenway, and that's where she held her own daughter underwater, while still telling her to be quiet, as she would tell investigators she held her daughter underwater.
This part is a roller coaster of emotions. After realizing the gravity of her actions, Brandy attempts to revive Piper using CPR. This moment of panic and regret highlights the irreversible consequences of her actions. A forensic psychiatrist discusses the impulsivity and finality of such decisions, noting that sometimes individuals only realize the severity of their actions too late.
Once Brandy pulled her daughter from the water, she reportedly realized she had done something wrong and tried to revive Piper with CPR.
Well, it reminds me of what I tell patients in my office who are suicidal. They'll commit these acts, and I tell them, if you jump off a building, you can't change your mind on the way down.
As we enter the courtroom, the plot thickens. Piper is pronounced dead at a local hospital, and her mother, Brandy Elliott, is charged with first-degree eliminate. During a court appearance, Brandy offers a peek into her mental state, discussing her past struggles with postpartum depression and the intense pressures of parenting.
To a local hospital where she was pronounced dead. Authorities charged her mother with first-degree murder. During a hearing last week, Brandy appeared before the judge, giving more insight into her state of mind. According to WKRN, Brandy said before the court, "When my daughter was 2, I kind of lost it like I did this time."
Diving deeper into the backstory, we explore Brandy's mental health history and her life as a caregiver for her disabled husband, noting her clean criminal record and the pressures she faced. The complexity of her emotional and psychological state is unpacked as contributing factors to this tragic event.
It doesn't fit, right? You would think a loving, doting mother would not do something like this to their child. You would think that they would, put their life on the line to protect their child. But to me, what that says is she may have very well loved her child, but in her own way, she was emotionally unstable and impulsive and did something that was horrific, and it does not necessarily mean she didn't love her child.
Let's take a moment to digest this. The discussion shifts to societal perceptions of mothers involved in such crimes, emphasizing that while the acts are heinous, the individuals are often not fundamentally evil, but overwhelmed and struggling to cope. The situation is humanized while acknowledging the severity of the crime.
These are shockingly ordinary people who do horrible things, and all of us, to some degree, are capable of criminal behavior if we're pushed far enough, and that was her breaking point. Maybe having a husband who was disabled was just too much to bear. It was too much on her plate, and that is what pushed her over the top.
As we wrap up this tragic tale, remember, it's all about the support system. Experts and commentators emphasize the importance of better support systems for parents feeling overwhelmed and highlight the crucial need for seeking help before a crisis occurs. They stress the importance of distinguishing between having destructive thoughts and acting on them, advocating for early intervention to prevent such tragedies.
If you feel like you're having difficulty coping, and thoughts do not equal action. You may have a thought in your head to do something, but that doesn't have to turn into an action, and there's still time to intervene before something horrific happens.
Can you believe this case? Strap yourselves in, folks. The video starts with the host, Jesse Weber, introducing a case involving an Arizona real estate agent accused of strangling her underage stepson after violently beating him. The agent, out on bond, faces multiple charges including child violence and aggravated assault. Jesse emphasizes the complexity of the case and the serious allegations being discussed.
An Arizona real estate agent is out on bond after police accused her of violently beating her stepson. She's facing multiple charges, including child abuse and aggravated assault. We're combing through her indictment and getting an Arizona attorney's perspective on this case.
This next part is a real jaw-dropper. Jesse Weber transitions to the charging documents, which provide shocking insights into the gruesome allegations. The accused, identified as a realtor in the Maricopa area, faces charges of child violence and aggravated assault. The specific charges include strangulation and beating, underlining the severity of the physical violence involved.
So we have these new charging documents out in Arizona, and it gives gives us some insight into a terrible case, although we don't have a ton of details, but we're going to tell you what we do know, and we're going to try to make sense of it. So Ariana Anzuris is a realtor in the Maricopa area.
What we just learned is absolutely horrifying. Grab your popcorn, because this part is intense. Arizona attorney Kurt Altman joins the discussion to explain the charges. He focuses on the aggravated nature of the alleged crimes, especially the child violence count that details restricting the child's airway. Kurt elaborates on how these are considered dangerous crimes against children in Arizona, which could lead to severe mandatory sentences.
Under circumstances likely to produce death or serious physical injury, she intentionally or knowingly did cause DS, a child under 15 years, to suffer physical injury, to wit, restricted victim's airway.
The complexity here is staggering. Brace yourselves. Kurt discusses why the accused faces multiple counts of aggravated assault, emphasizing the separate actions involved, including alleged strangulation and impeding breathing. He explains the legal distinction between these acts and the implications for sentencing, highlighting the severe consequences under Arizona law for crimes involving children.
Aggravated assault, quote, intentionally, knowingly, or recklessly did cause physical injury to DS, and Ariana Cheyenne Anzuris intentionally or knowingly impeded the normal breathing or circulation of blood of DS by applying pressure to the throat or neck, or by obstructing the nose and mouth either manually or through the use of an instrument.
You'll want to sit tight for this one. It's quite the curveball. The conversation shifts to the disorderly conduct charge, with Kurt explaining its significance and providing context for the defendant's behavior during the incident. This charge helps paint a broader picture of the defendant's state, including her alleged intoxication, which is pivotal for establishing the circumstances under which the violence occurred.
And they would want this running consecutively, meaning each sentence for each charge run one after the other. Would I be right about that?
Well, in Arizona, she certainly faces consecutive sentences in something like this, and that's entirely up to the court at sentencing. The court could look at it as one course of conduct and one victim, and not impose consecutive sentence. I mean,
you won't believe the twists and turns possible in the defense strategy. Are you ready for this roller coaster? Jesse and Kurt discuss potential defenses that could be mounted by the accused, considering the strong evidence including audio and video recordings. They speculate on the strategies the defense might use, such as challenging the reliability of evidence or interpreting the events differently to introduce doubt among jurors.
It's kind of another throw-in for the prosecution that allows them to bring more evidence in my opinion. Disorderly conduct is a felony, low-level felony, but based on the charge and what you're telling me and what the indictment says, sounds like people were just having an evening, an afternoon, whatever at the house.
What comes next could totally change the game. Fasten your seatbelts, because this is a big one. Towards the end, Jesse and Kurt contemplate the likelihood and rationale behind a potential plea deal. They discuss how a plea could benefit all parties involved by reducing exposure to traumatic trial proceedings, especially for the child, while ensuring that justice is served effectively and efficiently.
For the defendant and protect the victims is whatever. So they have a strong incentive to plead these cases.
Kurt Altman, thanks so much for coming on, and it was great seeing you, but as you said at the beginning, wish it was under different circumstances, but great seeing you. Thanks so much for coming on.
Appreciate it, Jesse. Thanks for having me.
Can you even grasp this? Lara Davis, a tiny 5-year-old, was hurriedly rushed to a hospital in Las Vegas, found all unresponsive and such. At the ER, doctors spotted multiple bruises scattered over her legs, torso, and abdomen, immediately ringing all kinds of alarm bells. This grim discovery nudged the investigators into action, nudging the gears of justice to start turning.
Teen 5-year-old Lara Davis was rushed to a Las Vegas hospital after she was found unresponsive. When doctors initially examined her, they noticed the little girl had several bruises on her legs, her torso, and her abdomen. The investigation would seemingly lead authorities to questioning Lara's mother's boyfriend, who reportedly called 911.
The plot thickens, folks. Deep diving into the investigation revealed that little Lara had been put through some grueling physical workouts, treated more like boot camp punishment because, get this, she was considered overweight. The man behind this harsh regimen was none other than her mother's boyfriend, Sear Wood, who apparently saw her weight as a problem needing some serious gym time.
Arrest report, Wood subjected the young girl to intense exercises and workouts at home as a form of punishment because Wood believed Lara was overweight. Police say Wood put the 5-year-old girl through various workouts like running sprints in the apartment, sit-ups, and wall squats.
This part is just bonkers. After the tragic curtain fell on poor Lara, Sear Wood, who was just 28 at the time, got slapped with eliminate charges. Not flying solo, Lara's mom also got nabbed, facing charges related to child violence and neglect thanks to her involvement in the gruesome discipline tactics, including the whole sitting on Lara's chest maneuver.
But he wasn't the only one arrested for the horrific crime. Lorea's mother, who was Woods' girlfriend at the time, was also charged in the case. Initially, she was charged with child abuse and neglect. Police said Taylor contributed to the abuse of her daughter, saying she sat on Lorea's chest and stomach as a form of punishment.
Here's where the legal eagles swoop in. Just a couple of months post-tragedy, both Wood and Lara's mom, Amy Taylor, found themselves indicted on elimination and child violence charges. Their subsequent parade through the courts underscored just how severe their actions were, leading to Lara's untimely demise.
2 months after Lorea's death, both Wood and Taylor were indicted on murder and felony child abuse charges. Fast forward 5 years after Lorea's horrific death, both would strike a plea deal. In April of this year, Wood, who is now 33 years old, pleaded guilty to second-degree murder and a charge of child abuse, neglect, or endangerment.
Get this twist. 5 whole years later, the duo decides to strike plea deals. Wood, now 33, went for an all-forward plea to second-degree elimination, which is like saying, I'm not saying I did it, but you've got enough to pin it on me. On the other hand, Amy Taylor copped to second-degree elimination and child violence outright.
Entered an Alford plea. As for Lorea's mother, Amy Taylor, she entered a guilty plea in April, admitting to charges of second-degree murder and child abuse, neglect, or endangerment, resulting in substantial bodily harm. According to the Las Vegas Review-Journal, during sentencing, Wood's attorney argued his client didn't inflict the injuries that led to Lorea's death.
As the judge starts slinging sentences, the blame game hits peak drama. Wood's lawyer tries to pin the grisly injuries on Taylor, while she fires back, pegging Wood as the real monster. The courtroom buzzes with their back and forth, but the judge keeps them focused on the brutal reality of their crime and the cringeworthy texts they sent about poor Lara.
Taylor for sitting on the 5-year-old girl's chest and holding her down. Wood claimed to be at work at the time, saying he didn't know Taylor had done that. His attorney argued he tried to provide Lorea and her mother with stability and had no prior criminal record. But Taylor turned the blame on Wood during her sentencing, claiming he was abusive toward her and Lorea.
This part will knock your socks off. The judge was having none of Wood's "I was just standing there" defense, especially considering his strong personality and the severity of Lara's injuries, like over 100 bruises and a bunch of broken ribs.
I think that this sentence definitely reflects the seriousness of the offense. He is sentenced to life in prison. Of course, there's a possibility for him to receive parole after 10 years, but it doesn't mean that he's going to be paroled.
This is where the hammer really drops. Wood got handed a life sentence with a chance of parole after a decade, plus some extra time for child violence. This hefty sentence reflects just how nasty the crime was, with the court deciding to stack the charges like a grim game of Jenga.
Doing the time altogether for both charges, he's doing those sentences back to back. So that essentially extends stay in the Department of Corrections of Nevada because of the nature. So while I do think that certainly, we of course would like to see him in prison for life.
Okay, here's the scoop on the plea deal. Legal Eagles chimed in, explaining that the deal spared everyone a heart-wrenching trial and was pretty clever given the mountain of evidence against the duo. Opting for a plea was all about judicial efficiency while not downplaying the horror of the case.
It doesn't surprise me. My inclination is that he entered the Alford plea as a part of the plea agreement to possibly receive some sort of benefit. I know that in the state of Nevada, there's a couple of sentencing options in regard to the murder and the second-degree charge. One, I believe, is just a flat-out life sentence.
This will tear at your heart. Lara's dad delivered a gut-wrenching victim impact statement, pouring out the terror and agony of Lara's last days and his own shattering loss. His poignant words painted a stark portrait of the emotional wreckage left behind, highlighting the deep scars the violence carved into everyone involved.
Caregivers of children, we really need to think twice about how we're treating children and what we're doing with them, and hopefully we can have a turnaround in this area because there's way too many child homicides going on right now.
All right, Safa, again, thank you so much for taking your time to do this interview with us today. We really appreciate it.